Hi everyone. So I'm on my phone recording today. Decided to go live because I've been asked these questions so many times, and I thought finally today we're going to have a Q&A session. I'm going to ask, I've got them written down here, the questions you always want answered about Italy, living in Italy, getting citizenship in Italy, and many other things. So we'll start from the beginning. And if you are unable to join us on the live, you can watch it back. It'll be published immediately, and you can leave me your questions there. If you want to ask a question, I ask that you send it as a comment rather than putting it in the chat, because I might miss it in the chat, but I usually won't miss it in the comment section. So whatever you want asked, let me know. And let's get right to it because we've got lots to cover. So, there are millions, maybe that's an exaggeration, let's say tens of thousands of vlogs about Italy, posts about Italy, videos on YouTube about living in Italy, what you need to know, what you should avoid, what is wonderful, what's terrible, why people leave Italy. A lot of them are clickbait titles because, of course, YouTubers, like everyone else, need people to watch their videos so they can get revenue. I try and avoid clickbait at any cost because I really can't bear it. So, but I have put today's title out as 10 reasons people leave Italy. What does that mean? That means that most of the people who leave Italy fail to do some research. They either came here on holiday and thought, oh, we could live here, and didn't ask pertinent questions because they maybe just didn't know those questions need to be asked. So I'm going to kind of play devil's advocate, and I'm going to ask all the tough questions that sometimes people ask of me, and sometimes I'm lucky enough to actually point them in the right direction in advance. So let me be the person who would ask these questions that some people find difficult to get to. Number one reason people leave Italy is they watched some program about a €1 house that could be got in a deserted town in Sicily or in the south normally, but could be in the central and in some cases also the north. And they imagine, gosh, I mean, how can I lose? The house is going to cost me €1. If I spend, who knows, 600, depends on their pocketbook, 600, 800, 120,000 on renovating it, if they, really maybe double the budget they would like. So yeah, it depends on obviously how deep the pockets are of the person who is thinking of renovating this house. But needless to say, it's not only the renovation costs that people have to look at when they're considering getting a €1 house. So let's backtrack a little bit and let's talk about why Italy has released the €1 house scheme and why particular towns and villages have decided to sign up for it. There's only one reason really, and that is that those villages and small towns have been depopulated over the last 20 years as young people saw no reason to stay there. Perhaps their parents lived there and perhaps their grandparents even lived there, and they grew up as a family unit, and the young people, after struggling to make a living and struggling to make it there, decided to go to the city, and maybe after a year or two of coming back and forth every few months for a holiday, they decided no, they're moving to Milan permanently, wherever it is, and they moved their residence. So these small towns and cities have been depopulated, and when that happens, of course, the municipality of the town, the people who run the town, don't have any money coming into their coffers from people who would pay refuse tax and tax on their houses and residents in general. So they shrivel up and die. And quite often they shrivel up and die because they don't have services to offer. So there isn't blindingly fast internet, which most people just take for granted will be there. I mean, Italy's in Europe. So, I mean, everywhere in Europe you have blindingly fast internet, don't you? Well, that could be the reason why the municipalities decided. Another reason is, sadly, Italy has one of the lowest birth rates in Europe. I think at time of going to press, they're third on the list. And new babies are not being born. It's incredibly expensive to have children, but you could argue it's the same anywhere. Well, I'm just quoting facts here. So don't shoot me, I'm just the piano player. Sending a child to nursery school is expensive. Salaries are incredibly low in Italy, something I'll get to on another question. Most people don't earn anywhere like you imagine they would earn when you're here on holiday, seeing people happily running around in the piazzas eating and having a pizza or whatever. So yes, so that's why the towns and villages decided to sign up for this €1 house thing. These are houses that need extensive either extension or more than renovation, because a roof could be collapsing, walls have been compromised because of damp or just malattention. The staircases often need to be reconstructed. It's major construction work. It's not just slapping a bit of paint around it, maybe going and sourcing some beautiful old antique doors to put on the front of it. There's a lot that has to be done. Please bear in mind that many of the people who go and research buying a €1 house don't have Italian language skills, and then have to try and find a local contractor who isn't busy. And let's face it, the good and successful ones are usually busy, and they have to try and communicate what they want to this contractor in English, which means it's probably filtered through somewhere else. So the possibilities of misunderstanding one another and getting stuff done are huge. Okay. Whatever. So, okay. But anyway, let's just go with the program. So you found this €1 house, you're on holiday, it's in Sicily, there's a blue sky, there's lovely orange trees everywhere. You go out, you eat what you consider to be, if you're from New York or many cities of the world, to be very cheap food, and you sit next to a sparkling blue sea with islands scattered around, and it's heaven. It's heaven on a stick, let's be honest. Yes, it's still heaven for me, and I've lived here for 20 years, and I've traveled the length of breadth of Italy from the very north to the very south, and it'll always be heaven to me, even though I know all the warts. The warts in graphic detail. Okay, so the €1 house could be one reason why people come to Italy and then suddenly discover a bit into having bought the house, spending huge amount of money, maybe failing or maybe succeeding in getting the house built, that in fact they have no right to stay in Italy. Permanently, that is. So if the goal was to come to Italy and have a second holiday house, wonderful, and that you come to for less than 90 days a year, preferably 60 days a year, so you don't get fed up with not having services. But you can come there and it's your second house, and you can go out and eat lovely food and do wonderful things. Fabulous. That is not a person who's going to leave Italy, because it is always going to be in a permanent situation where they just come from wherever they live in the world and they just enjoy the best Italy has to offer. And Italy relies on this revenue, and it's no bad thing. Where things go wrong on the number one people that leave Italy is suddenly they think, well, we don't want to run 2 houses or 3 houses, depending on how many they have. We would like to stay here. We're coming toward retirement. We're blah, blah, blah. We want to be digital nomads, that lovely term that I just love. And yeah, we want to live in this house, and this is where things start to go off the rails. Because up until then, it was a beautiful dream, and it was a lovely dream, and everything went well. You've spent tens of thousands of euro getting this house into some kind of shape that makes it livable. You boast to all your friends, we bought it for €1, but we spent, I don't know, 100,000 on it to get it in the shape it's in, and it's great, and everyone's happy. And then you start to research, because people have told you that there's free medical in Italy, unlike America, where unless you have a job that covers you, or unless you have a lot of funds in the bank, yeah, medical can wipe you out. One little medical event can wipe you out, quite frankly. Anyway, so you've heard all of this, and the food's cheap, and it's a lovely holiday, and you're just bouncing off the walls with enthusiasm. I know, I bounce off the walls with enthusiasm often. And then my brain catches up later, but it's okay. Bouncing off the walls with enthusiasm is what living in Italy is all about. It's a whole nother planet. Anyway, come to find out, because they go on Facebook, on the millions of, and here I'm not exaggerating, of Facebook groups. They are dedicated to living in Italy, being a Schengen shuffler. I'll cover what a Schengen shuffler is later. Being a person with dual citizenship, the really lucky ones, and so on. So you've heard all of this, and it's been bandied around, and then you don't have dual citizenship. You're not one of the lucky ones whose grandparents or parents were born in Italy, went to America or UK or Australia, wherever, and you were able, through the jus sanguis, to get, by descent, Italian citizenship. There are many ways that you can fall down on that, and that's another one, that's further down. But let's say you manage to get dual citizenship, and you come to Italy and you say, that's it, we have dual citizenship, we're not subject to all these visa requirements. I will cover visas in number 3, people who get the visa wrong or don't understand the visa, and I will cover all the legitimate ways you can come to Italy. I run webinars on this, but today we're covering it. So this information is going to help you a lot. I just know it. I've always said over the years in helping people, if only I could inform people before they have made decisions, before they've come, before they've sold their house, wherever they're coming from. But maybe it wouldn't make much difference because they wouldn't listen, but I think it would in so many cases. And so here I am. I'm right here on YouTube. So they have dual citizenship, they bought the house, they've spent 100,000 euro on making this house into a gorgeous little nest where they can spend their golden years, eating beautiful Italian food, tripsing around the piazza, listening to beautiful lyrical Italian. Who doesn't want to do that? Everyone wants to do that. They've read Under a Tuscan Sun 40 times. They can recite it. They can recite whole passages to you from the Under the Tuscan Sun. But one of them gets ill. And suddenly they realize that even though they have Italian citizenship, they haven't registered as a resident. And one of the requirements, wherever you live in Italy, whatever your status before you got there, you have to register as a resident. I remember when I first came to Italy many moons ago, Italians who I told that I had to go to the comune and register just didn't see it that it was strange at all, or even unusual. And they said, well, what do you do in England? And I said, well, you don't register as a resident. I mean, you may, but you can just go and rent a place, get your job, and get on with it. And of course, you use that address because that's where you're resident. And maybe your landlord pays the refuse tax, or maybe you do. But nevertheless, you don't have to ask for residence. Okay, whatever. And so their question to me was, and still is, how does the postman find you? Well, they send the letter and you either get it or you don't, but not in Italy. In Italy, your name has to be up on the buzzer, otherwise the postino won't leave your letter. And in order to have your name up on the buzzer, you have to be a resident in the comune. So let's go back to the residents in the comune. One of them gets sick and they need to go to the hospital. And the first question is, do you have private insurance? No, because now we're living here. Okay, but we are Italian citizens. Yes. Okay. Do you have a carta d'identità? Yes, we have, because we're Italian citizens and we got one. Okay. Do you have a carta sanitaria? Which everybody has, even me. I'm an Italian citizen now. Have been for some time. I have a carta sanitaria. Mine looks slightly different from other people that might be in Italy because I'm a permanent resident, and more, I am an Italian citizen. So there are different kinds of Italian citizens. The Italian citizens who are living in Rio de Janeiro, in America, in Hollywood, or wherever, but they're not resident in Italy, right? They have the right to be resident in Italy, but if they haven't taken up that right, they are not resident in Italy yet, and may never be. I mean, there are millions of Italians all over the world who are never going to live in Italy. So you have to be a resident, and then you have to have the carta sanitaria. So that can be the first thing. And so between getting that card and this person is sick going to the hospital and everyone being very confused, that's the first disillusionment that settles in. Oh my God. What are we going to do now? We thought this was going to be very smooth, and it isn't. And so this person has major complications and everything starts going really bad. And before you know it, they're very unhappy and they decide to go back to America where they're closer to family, or Australia, where they're closer to family, where they know how the medical system works, even if it is terribly expensive. It's a known quantity. And human beings, us human beings, are strange. We relish in the familiar. We want things not to change. We don't like too many things around us to be unfamiliar. So that can be one reason that even a person who's legitimately allowed to live in Italy, stay in Italy, has all of the rights because they're a citizen, will leave Italy because they came on a reason that became more and more convoluted. Okay, so let's look at number 2 reason why some people might leave Italy. They got the wrong information about which visa they should have come on, or which visa they should have got, or they were on various Facebook groups about how to move to Italy, how to retire in Italy, what to do in Italy, etc. How to turn your Italian under the Tuscan sun holiday into a permanent residence situation. Now, there's all kinds of information, and this subject has exploded even further than it was before, from dual residence groups or dual citizenship groups, Schengen shufflers groups who can't get residents, who shuffle 90 days in and the out. But now we have all the UK residents who wanted to live here, who were going back and forth, and are now in the same bucket. They are third country. They are no longer in the European Union. So all of those people are also on the Facebook groups trying to find out, how can I live in Italy? Okay, so let's look at the scenario that this person, number 2, on our reasons, came to Italy without conclusive information, without doing the proper research, which, by the way, is not asking people in a Facebook group legal questions about the future of your residence in Italy. I think that these groups provide amazing support. I've been able to help lots of people in those groups and maybe discuss things that I myself were in the beginning confused about. So it's not that I don't believe they shouldn't exist. It's that if you wouldn't ask a man in the street about your medical condition to get a definitive answer on how you might treat it, why would you ask somebody who, at the very best, even if they are incredibly well informed, know about their situation? And so we'll answer you on Facebook, but not your particular situation, your particular tax responsibilities, your particular consular limitations or advantages, your particular citizenship and rights that go with it. So yes, I know lawyers can be incredibly expensive. Attorneys all over the world cost a fortune, and maybe you don't need an attorney, but you certainly need advice. So let's say this number 2 person who's leaving Italy leaves because they thought they could come here and find a job, right? Well, I'll leave it to the hundreds of other vlogs to tell you why it's so incredibly difficult to just come here and find a job. Language is only one of those reasons. A lot of people say, well, it's because you don't have fluent Italian. I have fluent Italian. I have had fluent Italian for quite a few years. And it's not the cure-all. It makes your life 50 times easier. I can't imagine that I would have achieved half the things I've achieved living in Italy without having those language skills. But it's not the cure-all, and it will not open that many doors for you for a job. If you already have open doors for a job because your company is transferring you, very rare, or that you have some other skill that the whole world wants, like you invented how to breathe oxygen, maybe you are one of those rare people who will be offered a job. But remember that all the European Union, that's what the European Union is, a union that all stick together and make rules about the working rights of those Europeans. They have to be offered that job before you. And if they can't find anybody within that European Union population, then you might still get the job. But barring those 2 hugely rare exceptions, you're going to have to realize that you can't work in Italy. Yes, even as a digital nomad. Because a digital nomad who might have lived in Portugal before they shut down Portugal and the NHR, non-habitual resident status, and the Portuguese started to say, we can't afford to rent a house here in our own town anymore because the property values have soared because all the digital nomads ran to Portugal, and it's been the same in Thailand or wherever it is. But you cannot work in Italy without a visa. There are those who say, well, I'll come on a student visa and then I'll try and segue into work. Extremely complicated. And again, you would have to have some extremely rare situation. You can't just come and do a short language course. That's not considered a student visa. It has to be a proper university course, it has to be paid for. So all of these things happen. So a second reason why somebody might leave Italy was because they became disillusioned with the fact that 3 months turned into 6 months, a job never materialized. Maybe they had a right to be in Italy, or maybe they came on the wrong reason. They came for the usual visitors holiday visa, 90 days, and those 90 days disappear very quickly when you're having fun. And they realized that, they sent off all these emails someone help them with their Italian, and they're just not going to find a job. And so Italy is expensive. Now, I know I'm going to get a whole lot of comments down there. Come, write the comments. I really want to answer them. Please, I look forward to your comments. They are the juice on which I live. And don't forget to like the video. You can like it right now. You don't even have to wait till the end. And subscribe if you haven't already, because I'm going to be covering these questions in the next one and the next one. I know we're only on number 2, but it's going to go faster from here, because getting rid of the first 3 will eliminate a lot of reasons why people leave Italy. So the work situation is a major deal, because perhaps you just came on a visitor's visa and believed that you could turn it into a residence visa. No. Or that you could turn it into a permanent residence visa. No. There are steps to go. And even if you're one of those incredibly lucky people who managed to come here and study and get a university degree because you had the language skills, maybe your parents were Italian, lucky you, you then have to change your reason. So you have to go from a student visa to a person who wants a temporary residence permit. And the requirement of that temporary residence permit is you need a job, because if you can't support yourself, how are you going to live here? Because the Italian government don't want to support you. They have enough of their own people to support, who perhaps can't find a job or can't look after themselves. So the first problem you're going to encounter is, even if you have that lovely medical insurance that you bought to come on your holiday, and so you never have to go to accident and emergency and find out that, yes, it is lovely to have social medicine, but you can't work and the money's running out. And suddenly you can't afford anymore to go and meet for aperitivi every evening in the beautiful piazza with your newly made friends. The Italians are very friendly and they're very welcoming, but they have lives, and their lives are difficult, and they work, and a lot of them earn very low salaries in comparison to the rest of Europe. So, okay, so you find out the harsh truth that you can't get a visa. And then you go on the Facebook group and they tell you, no, the only way is to get an elective visa. And to get an elective visa, you either have to be retired with a provable, and I repeat the word provable because it's not up to subjective opinions, a provable income that is passive. In other words, you cannot work in any way. You either have to have property that provides you with a pension that comes in regularly and has records for the last 5 years in your bank, not written on a piece of paper, as to your income, or you have to have a pension. And I'm not going to quote exact figures because it's up to the consulate in your country really to give you the information that you require, but you can go anywhere on the internet and find out the figure that you need. Let's say it's about 30,000, could be more, depends how many people in the family. It's between 30 and 50,000. Let's put it that way, okay? That you need to earn on an annual basis every year, and have been earning for some time, to prove in your country before you even get to Italy. It's not about the Italians here. Before you are even scheduled to have your interview with the consulate in your country for the elective visa, which enables you to come here on a temporary basis. Once Italy accepts you on a temporary basis, you then renew it, and then after 5 years, you could perhaps be a permanent resident. So it's a very long, winding, and for those that have the funds, it's not something you can do on a whim when nothing else worked out. So a lot of people are leaving because they came on the wrong visa. Yeah, it's unfortunate and it's sad, and I hate to see people fall into these traps year after year after year. But do your research. Please do your research. You can send me an email. I'll point you in the right direction. Okay. Now, the third reason is they didn't realize that the culture was going to catch up with them. What do I mean by that? Do I mean that Italy has a very different culture from other cultures? Yeah, it does. I mean, every culture has its joys and benefits. The Italian culture has been promoted and spoken about and misunderstood and misappropriated for, I think, thousands of years, possibly. It's a lovely place to be. I came here for the art and architecture originally. I still stay for the art and architecture, which is mostly completely free. I love walking in piazzas. I love the freedom that it gives me to walk everywhere. But I know what I'm doing, and I don't take unnecessary risks, and I travel all over Italy. The transport's brilliant, but yeah, it may suit you, it may not suit you, and the brief window you had into the culture while you're on holiday may not be what's going to happen when you have to work, if you do manage to work because you're an Italian citizen and you find a job. When you have to, or if you're not working, if you're retired and you have to make ends meet and maybe go and sit in front of a doctor who doesn't understand you, deal with your medical problems at the hospital with people who really don't have the time for you to talk in halting Italian, whatever it is, or the fact that you just ran out of money. It can happen. Or the fact that you desperately miss your family. You didn't think it was an issue because you thought, oh, we'll go home twice a year. It's really enough. It's not going to be so bad. We'll live in Italy. They'll all come and visit us. And maybe for the first 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, that'll work very well. You have tons of friends. You always have friends come to visit you when you live in Italy. It's a given. Everyone wants to come to Italy. Literally everybody. Well, maybe 5 people in the whole universe don't, but I don't know who those people are. Anyway, yeah. So something trips you up. Something trips you up. And suddenly all the wine, the pizza, the mandolini, as they say, the spaghetti, the beautiful crab linguine that you had on the beach in Amalfi or in Positano, or the beautiful, cypress-filled winding roads going up to San Gimignano or in Florence, suddenly they aren't enough because you miss your family. You feel alone because Italians have their families, they have their school friends. Maybe they like to chat to you for an hour or two, over an aperitivo and practice their English a little bit. They love that. But on a daily basis, if you can't converse with them, which requires sophisticated Italian, not basic Italian, to, so you can have a conversation with 10 other Italians having aperitivi, you're going to feel like a spare part. It's just a given. There's nothing anyone can do about it. And it's nobody's fault. It's not the Italians' fault. It's not your fault. You had a dream. And maybe now somebody's put a big fat old pin in your balloon and said, why do I feel so lonely? I'm walking across this beautiful piazza that I came to on holiday. The churches are exquisite, but I feel so alone. I feel so lonely. I'm tired of phoning my family on Skype and saying, you can't believe how beautiful the sunset is tonight. And I've gone down to the Cinque Terre and I'm sitting here on the beach and I'm having a lovely Aperol spritz, and they say, oh yeah, well, good for you. I'm busy. I'm knee deep in work, or I've just woken up, and and so you feel lonely, and it's normal. And maybe you have 1 or 2 friends who speak your language, but somehow you feel on the outside of Italian culture, the outside of Italian life. And that's number 3 reason why people leave. They just can't adapt. It's too much of a culture shock for them. or they just never imagined it was be any kind of shock because they loved it so much, and now it is. Number 4 reason, moving along, that people leave Italy is that they absolutely, maybe this should have been higher, but I did say that it's in no particular order. So these are not in particular order of importance. They're just things that I've seen time and time again with my friends and helped my friends through, who eventually say, God, I've got to leave. Anyway, bureaucracy. Now, I know you've probably heard about Italian bureaucracy, and you might say, is it any worse than Spanish bureaucracy? Is it any worse than, I don't know, Portuguese bureaucracy? Is it any worse than German, or anywhere in Europe, or anywhere in the world for that matter? I don't know. I don't know if it's any worse. I've lived in 5 countries, and I can tell you that having lived here as a permanent resident and becoming a citizen and doing things that some of my English friends have never done, like teaching in a state school, like, working in a university, like doing many things that I've done as a foreigner, recently an Italian citizen. It's tough. It's really, really tough. It's not so much that maybe we have more rules than anybody else, but that it's convoluted and it's intricate. And I cannot give you a black and white bulletin point quoting of exactly what you have to do for any process or exactly what the law is, because the law is constantly evolving. Italians don't understand the law. Italians who studied law for 10 years don't understand the law always. So it's convoluted, it's long, it's complicated. And when it goes well and everything's going well, it's great. Okay, when it doesn't and it's against you, or you can't get an answer to the question you need, it's infuriating and frustrating, and eventually erodes your confidence in the fact that you can operate here. Let's take an example. You go to the Comune because you were told you have to register as a resident. You were told to take these 4 documents. You go there with your 4 documents with the number of copies they told you to take, because you're on that lovely Facebook group and everyone else has done it, and they say, this is exactly what you have to do. Boom, 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 boom. There's the points. So off you go. They're all jolly and happy. You go early in the morning, all skipping with your lovely coat on, and off you go with your documents in a backpack. The one thing I never go anywhere without an Italy backpack, because if you're going to be carrying documents, you'll need every document. You'll find this out. You'll need every document from the first day you arrived to today, even if that's 35 years, because it's going to be demanded of you. Somewhere along the line, you'll say, but I've got a carta d'identità, I've been here for whatever. I don't need all those original. Yeah, just take them. Just take them, put them in the backpack, take them. Okay, great. So you go there and you say, this is the story. You explain in your best Italian. This is the story. This is what I need to do today. And they look at you as if to say, why is this person standing in front of my window? I was about to have my coffee break and now I've got to deal with this straniero. And they will just say to you, no, you can't do it today, you have to come back tomorrow. Their favorite answer is, you can't do it today, you have to come back tomorrow. And you say, why? I've traveled 40 kilometers to the nearest town where I can do it. And they'll say, no, non si può fare oggi, scusi. And stupidly, you will need a reason why they can't do it today. And they won't give you that reason. And you might spend another 20 minutes trying to get that reason out of them, and they won't give it to you, because that is how they have survived for however many years they've survived on the face of the Italian earth. That whatever reason, they don't know how to do it would be one reason why they can't do it. Their colleague who usually helps them is not in today. They don't feel like doing it. They were about to go for a coffee break. Choose one of the above. All of those are reasons why bureaucracy in Italy can drive you to literally commit suicide. And I do not mean to diminish depression and being driven crazy, but it does actually depress people to be faced with this. Okay, so then you go back another day with different documents, with more documents. You ask the questions in a slightly different way, and you might find that you'll just find the right person and everything goes so smoothly. And you've told everyone what a nightmare the other day is, and they don't believe you because look, everything, you see, everything worked out. And then you'll go another time, it'll be a disaster in the last 8 months of them saying, no, you need that piece of paper, you need that document, and it'll change every time. And if you ask 10 different people, they'll give you 10 completely different answers. And even Italians, you would think, well, let me ask my Italian friend, let me bring my Italian friend with me. They'll be as gobsmacked as you are because they've never had to do this. They've never had to do any of this. They were born here. Their parents registered their birth and then everything just flowed after that. And most of the stuff their parents did. And there wasn't a problem because the person on the desk didn't see them as anonymy. You are out of the box. You are a different kettle of fish. They're terrified of registering you wrong or making some document that they've signed their name to that's wrong. So they just keep sending you away or keep, making it obscure as to what you could or would or should or might do. So where are we? I think we're on number 5. If we aren't, we're going to have to be. Right. Yeah. You realized that getting that house halfway up the hill, which was so romantic in that village, which was abandoned, that you've been a part of restoring to life again, you need a car. You need a car to live. If you've ever driven on Italian roads, I don't need to say any more, but if you haven't driven on Italian roads or you've been on a bus or in a taxi or someone was driving for you, namely an Italian driver, then maybe you haven't realized, but I don't know, you must have been living out of Italy if you don't know what a challenge it is to own a car, park a car, and drive a car and insure a car in Italy. First of all, if you're American, within a year, even if everything goes well and you become a resident here, you have to get an Italian license. There's no way to avoid this. You're going to have to write it in Italian. Yes, your preliminary driver's test, your second driver's test, your lessons that you do with the instructor, and your actual practical test, as we English people call it, is going to be in Italian. Yeah. And you're going to have to do it, and you can't hesitate. And you can't say, well, it's my second language. Sorry. I mean, you have to drive in Italian. There are no excuses. But many people don't even get that far because they never realize that the bus, the plane, the lovely public transport that I've always used and found very good and very affordable, by the way. It's one of the biggest blessings that I have living here in Italy. The public transport, certainly in the north where I live, between Milan and Como, and even down as far as Bologna, literally most of Italy has amazing public transport, trains, planes, boats, traghettos, which are ferries, trams, and a bus, even to a little village. But if you want to drive, if you need to drive because you have a weekly visit at a hospital and suddenly you got ill and you've got to get there, and it involves changing 4 buses to get up to your little mountaintop village, and there's no train nearby to get to go to the airport, to go home to your family, it starts to tire on you, and you suddenly realize, why did I come and live in the boondocks here in the middle of nowhere where nobody actually can talk to me because there's no English-speaking people? Number 6 and 7, we'll put them together. You suddenly realize that you need Italians to bring you in. You need Italians to talk to. You need Italians to socialize with. but you haven't got the language skills, and maybe you can, say, oh, they're so friendly, yeah, but you kind of, it's a stress for them as much as it's a stress for you, because they're having an occasion, and after 10 minutes of, both trying to speak English and you're trying to speak Italian, they suddenly realize this is not actually fun. This is like hard work. And so you just don't get invited anywhere, and you don't get brought in. And so all that lovely first feeling you had on holiday, where they invited you to join them for aperitivi, or you're invited by somebody's mother to join for lunch because you're a novelty. You're an English person. But now you're trying to live here, and you're not a novelty anymore. You're just a pain in the ass. You're a pain in the butt. That's what you are. To yourself, to them, to everybody. And it's unfortunate, but it just is what it is, You're getting irritated with yourself even, because you think, sorry, I'm having a sip of my tea, which is now cold. Who said you'll get used to drinking lukewarm tea in Italy, definitely without milk too. Anyway, yes, so 6 and 7, or and I put these two together because maybe you came for somebody who brought you into society, brought you into the group, brought you into the culture, a boyfriend, a girl, you fell in love. You fell in love while on holiday. They said, come and live here. Everything's glorious, wonderful. You're in love. You cancel out all the things that could go wrong, might go wrong. The fact that you can't speak the language, whatever. You're in love. Who needs language when you're in love? There's a language of love. So you speak the language of love, and everything's lovely. And then it's 1 year later or 6 months later, whatever, the white hot coals of love have cooled a little bit. And you just realize that, you're a pain in the butt to them, and they're a pain in the butt to you. And they're spending more and more time with their family and their friends, and not including you because you are a pain in the butt. And and you try really hard, to be understood and to talk about your experience and your childhood and your culture and how it's different, and what you do on birthdays and how you sing happy birthday and your traditions at Thanksgiving or whatever. But it's nice the first time, the second time. So you get what we call culture fatigue, and that's another reason many people leave, even if everything else they manage to work out the bureaucracy, maybe even get a job. In the old days, a lot of British people taught here and weren't permanent residents, but they could teach because they're part of the European Union. When Brexit happened, that all went pear-shaped, and now you have people who have to make a decision. And by the way, another reason, and this is number 8 and 9, I'll group those two together. You can't be a permanent resident in 2 places. You can't. This is another question that people ask me all the time. People ask me this all the time. Why can't I be a resident in 2 places? You can't. You can't. You really can't. So, in the minute when you register for permanent residency in Italy, you have to deregister somewhere else. So let's look at a person coming from England who wasn't here before Brexit. If you were here before Brexit, you got a piece of paper to say you were here pre-Brexit, and therefore you are exercising your pre-Brexit rights to be in the European Union, right? And you're treated theoretically, and I say theoretically, I'll get to it just now, as a European Union citizen, even though Britain exited while you were here. So after that, 2022, you're a third national. So you have people from Britain here that were here already, and they exercising their rights that way. And then they can decide, they got a carta di soggiorno, which is a pain in the neck to get, but if you have that, that is the next step. And then after you are eventually granted 10 years of permanent resident, you are a permanent resident here. And after 10 those 10 years, if you can pass the language test, if you can have a clean police report, if you can list all the addresses you've lived in the last, since you were a 14-year-old, then you can apply for citizenship and wait however many years works out for you in your particular case. But let's backtrack. So if that's not the case, you cannot be resident in two places. So you can't be resident in England and pay tax and resident in Italy and pay tax. You can do that two things, but unless you're tax resident in one place, and you have to be tax resident in one place too, because one of those two places is going to win. Either you're living 39 days, 3 months one place and 9 months the other, or 6 months here and 6 months here. But one of those is 1 day less, and that's the one you're not resident in. So you can only be resident in one place in one time. Another reason people leave Italy is because they think they can be resident in two places, and suddenly the axe falls on them and okay, I can't. And then they've got to unwind all this tax stuff. Or they say, can't my UK company employ me in Italy? Yes, hugely complicated, very tax inefficient, and you will need a lawyer to unpick it all. So yeah, theoretically, again, theoretically is never enough, really, when you're trying to live in a new country and adjust and settle in. Another reason why people leave Italy is because they came here, many of them English people from UK, and then realized that, they're cut off from their family, even though it's just UK, and they have to choose one or the other. They've got to choose. Am I going to buy a house here in Italy, or not? Okay? So they land up going back to UK and just coming on holiday. And that's all great and good. And you can still enjoy Italy without all the headache of trying to work out the taxability, the profitability. UK residents are now subject to the same thing as Americans and Australians. You've got to actually apply for that elective visa if you have no other right to be here. Another right to be here, of course, would be that you marry an Italian, and after it's 2 years, as I understand it, to get citizenship if you apply right away. And if not, if you have a child, if you're a young couple, or you're not so young couple, have a child, they can accelerate it to 1 year. They did this for the refugees to be incorporated in family reunification. But the most important reason I see altogether, we're going to finish up with this one, is that people buy a house in Italy either on the €1 scheme and renovate it, or for €50,000 in a beautiful little village, or they just find a ready-made house that they're in love with in Tuscany, in Sicily. Could be anywhere. It could be in the mountains near Bormio. It could be on the Ligurian coast. Every one of the Facebook groups are always talking about the best place to live. By the way, I have a best places to live in the north, for many reasons about transport and settling in. So you could look at that video. Maybe I'll hook it up there. Best places to live in the north in Italy. And I'm also going to do best places in the south from my own experience and from the people I've helped to settle in here. People buy a house and renovate it, and they're probably working, so they go back to America. And once they have had enough holidays here, they start to realize, it's not so bad, old Italy. I love it. Let's just go and live there permanently. Why are we going back to this awful health system in America? And COVID also added to this because people were deprived of their beloved Italy for 3 years, and it pushed a lot of people to say, I don't want to be stuck in America. I don't want to die in America or Australia. I mean, I'm picking on America because that's the majority, but Australia or UK, I don't want that. I want to go back to Italy. I want to go to my house. And I couldn't go to my house for 2 or 3 years, either because of COVID restrictions or I had long COVID and I couldn't travel and I couldn't go back. So not being able to travel was a major push to people saying, okay, I want to be in Italy. I want to be permanently in Italy. I have a house there. I have a house there. My goodness. Have you seen how beautiful my house is? I have a house there. Why shouldn't I be there? Of course I should be there. They say it among their friends, and their friends say, of course you should be in Italy. Then they get to Italy, and 2 months in, they get off Facebook for a minute and they have a conversation with somebody who actually knows what's required, and they find out they have no rights of residence. And they say, but I bought a house. And they don't know that owning a house in Italy, and this is a point that I talk about nearly in every video I do, owning a house in Italy doesn't give you any rights of residence in and of itself. Of course, it helps. If you're applying for an elective visa and you don't have to put down 1 year of rent in advance to get your elective visa because you own a house, okay, it's great. But it doesn't confer any right to residence owning a house in Italy, unlike the golden visa in Portugal, which many people came in on. At a certain value of property, you were granted a temporary residence permit leading to citizenship eventually. And so people get confused between countries and they think, of course I should be able to live permanently. I've sat in rooms where people have had stand up and almost punch up arguments that definitely I have rights to live in Italy. I own a house there. Wow. That's a big reason why people end up leaving Italy when they thought they were going to be permanently here, and they start wondering, should they put a luxury American sports car on a boat and bring it over here? Another thing you should never do. They suddenly realize, right, I've got to apply for this elective visa. What do I need for the elective visa? So I'm not going to list every single thing you need for the elective visa. It gets asked to me all the time. I'm not going to go into tax questions on this. But another reason, and I'll leave this as the last and final, that people leave Italy is they suddenly realize it's not tax advantageous. It's hugely taxed. We pay tax on everything in Italy. Our income tax is huge. Our sales tax, there's all kinds of taxes that are hidden. And on top of it, perhaps if you are a wealthy person or even a person of means who owns a house in Italy and loves to come and spend half the year here, it's not advantageous for you to be a resident here. And you might be better off just enjoying that house whenever you can for your 90 days and becoming a Schengen-Schaffler. So you asked, what is a Schengen-Schaffler? A Schengen-Schaffler it means you've got to be out of the European Union after 90 days, or preferably before your 90 days up. There's all sorts of calculators to calculate your days so that you have extra days in case you run over. And you need to be out of the European Union. So there's a whole bunch of people, there's various groups holding each other up and encouraging each other that cannot get residence in Italy, who bought a house in Italy and then discovered, they have to Schengen shuffle, and it's expensive. And as you get older, not so much fun, by the way, jumping around extra Europe. So, I mean, you can go, Ireland's still in the European Union, but there's lots of places you could go that aren't Schengen. But it means that you can't stay in Italy longer than that time. So that is a reason. And yes, all of these reasons why people leave Italy when at first they were completely in love. And you know what they say, the course of love rarely runs smoothly. And so it is with the love of Italy. I've been incredibly fortunate that all the ups and downs, and believe me, I've had moments when I thought, no, I don't want to live out my last days in Italy. and I've lived in at least 3 European countries. But I'm here and I love it now. I love where I live, and I love to help people before they come so they don't fall into these holes. So if you need advice, if it's legal advice, we work with some amazing people who are very clued up on the elective visa, on citizenship or whatever. If you feel you can manage it on your own, you don't need legal advice, maybe you need tax advice, or maybe you just need a hand to hold when you're getting your documents, we do that. We offer the service. There's also an initial call that we can do, a one-time call, which is 30 minutes. You can ask any specific question you have that I don't want to put out to all the public. And in confidence, you can ask us that, and maybe that's all you need, and maybe that clears up anything. Or you might discover, okay, I can do this. I want to apply for the elective visa. I want to try and get my citizenship back. Can you help me with this document? Can you offer a translation? All of these things we can help you with. If I can't personally help you with it, I've got a whole bunch of people in Italy who are English speaking who can help you with it and help you to be on the right track so that when you come, you can enjoy that beautiful adult vita. So I hope you've enjoyed this. I had to record it live because I didn't want to edit out all that. So if I've made any blurbs, I don't think I made many, then that's just what happens on a live video. Thank you for joining me. Please like the video when you watch this back. It helps me enormously on the channel. Please subscribe because I make this content for you guys to make it easier. And please go and watch some of my other videos on how to live in Italy and get permanent residence leading to citizenship, or just enjoy beautiful Italy. I post lots of things on sailing, beautiful parts of Italy. Was just in a Piemonte farm last weekend. You can go and watch that video on a lovely Piedmont farm. So yes, so from Italy here, this is Amanda signing out. Leave me a comment anywhere and let me know what you learned today or what you'd like to ask. See you on the next one. Don't forget, enjoy your life, enjoy yourself, and we'll see you on the next one. Bye for now. See you soon. Bye. Bye. Bye.